What if I told you that almost everything you've been told about the Vikings is incomplete? Most people imagine bloodthirsty raiders, savage warriors, men who lived only to kill and conquer. That's exactly what I believed. Until I traveled back to the year 865 AD, I expected to find monsters. Instead, I found people who laughed, worked, raised families, dreamed of a better future. And by the end of that single day, I realized history had been telling only half the story. The time machine came to a stop with a violent jolt. The familiar sounds of the modern world vanished instantly. No engines, no airplanes, no distant traffic, only silence. Then, the door slowly opened. A blast of freezing air hit my face so hard, it stole my breath. I stepped outside. The first thing I noticed wasn't the cold. It was the smell. Fresh pine, salt water, wood smoke, the kind of air no modern city has breathed in centuries. Before me stretched a massive fjord, surrounded by towering cliffs and endless forests. Small wooden houses dotted the shoreline. Thin streams of smoke drifted lazily into the grey morning sky. Somewhere nearby, I heard children laughing, dogs barking, axes striking wood, blacksmiths hammering glowing iron. This was a Viking village, and it looked nothing like the brutal world I'd imagined. Nobody seemed to be preparing for war. Life was happening. Women carried baskets filled with grain. Fishermen repaired torn nets. Farmers sharpened tools for the next harvest. Children chased each other between the houses as if the world had never known violence. It was almost peaceful, because beneath that peaceful surface, everything revolved around survival. In Scandinavia, survival wasn't guaranteed. The winters were brutally long. The soil was difficult to farm. Food was precious. Every decision mattered. That's when I noticed something strange. Almost every adult carried a knife. At first, I assumed it was for protection. I was wrong. A Viking's knife was like a modern pocket tool. It prepared food, cut rope, carved wood, repaired equipment. Only in the worst situations did it become a weapon. That tiny detail completely changed my perspective. These people weren't walking around expecting a fight every minute. They were simply prepared for life. As I wandered deeper into the village, the sound of metal echoed through the air. Clang, clang, clang. I followed the noise until I reached a blacksmith's workshop. Inside, a man stood over a glowing piece of iron. Every swing of his hammer was deliberate, precise, almost artistic. Beside him weren't just swords. There were farming tools, fishing hooks, axes for chopping wood, kitchen knives, everything a community needed to survive. That's when it hit me. The same hands that forged weapons also built civilization. Without blacksmiths, there were no farms, no ships, no homes, no Viking world. Leaving the forge, I noticed a growing crowd gathering along the shoreline. People were carrying barrels, coils of rope, bundles of supplies. Something important was happening. Then I saw it, a Viking longship, not a museum replica, not a Hollywood prop. The real thing. It was breathtaking, long, elegant, built with overlapping wooden planks that made it both flexible and incredibly strong. At the bow stood a carved dragon's head, staring toward the sea. It looked less like a boat and more like a living creature waiting to wake up. I ran my hand across the smooth wood. No engines, no steel hull, no modern tools. Yet ships like this crossed some of the most dangerous waters on Earth. They reached England, France, Ireland, Iceland, Greenland, and even North America, nearly 5 centuries before Columbus. In that moment, I realized something. The greatest Viking weapon wasn't the axe, it was the ship. Without these vessels, there would have been no Viking Age. As I admired the craftsmanship, an elderly sailor noticed me. He smiled, pointed toward the endless sea, and said only 4 words: "The sea is freedom." I never forgot them. To most civilizations, the ocean marked the edge of the known world. To the Vikings, it was the road to opportunity. The mood around the village suddenly shifted. Conversations grew quieter. Blacksmiths worked faster. Shields were stacked beside the dock. Young men embraced their families. Women packed food into leather sacks. Children watched silently from the shore. An expedition was about to begin. Without realizing it, I found myself helping carry supplies aboard the ship. No one questioned who I was. To them, I was simply another traveler. As the first rays of sunlight broke over the mountains, the longship slipped away from the shore. The oars entered the water together, perfectly synchronized. Nobody sang, nobody shouted, only the steady rhythm of wood slicing through the sea. Hour after hour, the coastline disappeared behind us, then another and another. Eventually, there was nothing left but open water in every direction. Life aboard the ship was harsher than I'd imagined. We slept on the deck beneath freezing skies. We ate dried fish, salted meat, hard bread, and whatever fresh food could be caught along the way. Fresh water was carefully rationed. Every storm was a reminder that the sea could kill us long before any enemy could. One clear night, I looked up. I'd never seen so many stars. Without city lights, the sky looked endless. It was then that I noticed something remarkable. The Vikings weren't just looking at the stars, they were reading them. They studied the position of the sun, the movement of waves, the direction of the wind, the flight of seabirds, even the color of the water. Nature itself was their map. No compass, no GPS, just centuries of knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Later, I sat beside a man named Eirik. He once a famous warrior. He wasn't a chieftain, just a farmer. I asked him why he had chosen to risk his life on this voyage. I expected him to say glory or riches. Instead, he looked toward the horizon and quietly replied, "My children need more land." That was it. No grand speech, no dream of becoming a legend, just a father trying to secure a future for his family. And suddenly, the Vikings no longer felt like mythical warriors. They felt human. A few days later, a voice shattered the silence. Land. Every man on the ship rushed toward the bow. Far in the distance, a small coastal settlement slowly came into view. The laughter disappeared. Shields were lifted, axes tightened in determined hands. My heartbeat quickened because I knew exactly what was about to happen. Or at least, I thought I did. As the village grew larger with every stroke of the oars, I could finally make out the people moving along the shoreline. They had no idea we were coming. The wind picked up, the waves slammed against the hull. No one aboard the longship spoke. Every warrior quietly adjusted his shield and checked the edge of his axe one final time. That was when I noticed something Hollywood almost never gets right. There was no chaos, no reckless screaming, no blind rush toward battle. Everything was planned. The landing point had been carefully chosen. The tides had been studied. The timing was perfect. Speed wasn't just an advantage, it was survival. The instant the hull scraped across the sand, the first warriors leaped ashore, their shields locked together into a defensive wall. Others stayed behind to protect the ship. Every movement had a purpose. I followed several steps behind, doing everything I could to remain unnoticed. Moments later, the bell of a small church began ringing wildly. The villagers had seen us. Some fled toward the forests, others desperately hid food, silver, and tools. That's when I understood something history books rarely explain. The sight of a Viking longship alone was enough to spread panic. Its reputation often won battles before the first weapon was ever raised. Then I witnessed something I never expected. Not every Viking rushed to attack. Some headed straight for storage buildings. Others gathered grain, livestock, cloth, barrels, and valuable tools. Their mission wasn't random destruction, it was survival. Everything they carried home could mean the difference between life and death during the next brutal winter. The less time they spent on shore, the greater their chance of escaping before local armies arrived. As I moved through the settlement, one moment froze itself in my memory forever. A warrior slowly pushed open the door of a small wooden home. Inside stood a frightened woman holding two children. For a few long seconds, nobody moved. Then the warrior quietly lowered his axe, closed the door, and walked away. In that instant, every stereotype I'd ever believed began to collapse. Were there brutal Vikings? Absolutely. History leaves no doubt about that. But they weren't mindless monsters. They were individuals, some merciless, some restrained, some honorable, others ruthless, just like every civilization before and after them. As I continued exploring, I noticed something even stranger. A local craftsman was speaking with several Vikings. They weren't fighting, they were negotiating. Trade had resumed almost immediately. It was a reminder that commerce and conflict often existed side by side in the medieval world. Then, I decided to answer one question that had followed me since childhood: the famous horned helmets. I carefully examined every warrior around me. Not one, not a single helmet, had horns, and honestly, that made perfect sense. A horned helmet would have been heavy, awkward, and dangerously impractical in combat. Modern historians agree that the image became popular centuries later through 19th century operas and artistic depictions, not historical evidence. Another myth disappeared before my eyes. Within what felt like only minutes, the expedition was over. The Vikings returned to their ship with remarkable discipline. They had no intention of staying longer than necessary. Every extra minute increased the risk of facing reinforcements. As soon as the longship pushed away from shore, the tension dissolved almost instantly. Some men laughed, others shared food. A few immediately began repairing small cracks in the ship's wooden hull. Even on the return voyage, there was always work to do. Later, I spoke with a woman responsible for organizing supplies. She explained that while many men traveled, women often managed farms, supervised workers, handled trade, and made important decisions back home. It challenged another popular misconception. Although Viking society was far from equal by today's standards, many women enjoyed legal rights and responsibilities that were surprisingly advanced compared to much of medieval Europe. The more I learned, the harder it became to think of the Vikings as simple raiders. They were sailors unlike any the world had seen. Explorers, builders, farmers, blacksmiths, merchants, storytellers. Their trade routes stretched from Scandinavia to the Byzantine Empire and the Middle East. They crossed the rivers of Eastern Europe. They founded settlements in Iceland and Greenland, and around the year 1000, Norse explorers reached North America, nearly 5 centuries before Christopher Columbus. They didn't simply leave destruction behind. They left ideas, technology, navigation skills, languages, traditions. Their influence still echoes through the modern world. Several days later, we returned to the same fjord where the journey had begun. As I stepped back onto the shore, I paused. The mountains stood exactly as before. Smoke drifted from the rooftops. Children laughed while chasing each other through. The village, to them, nothing extraordinary had happened. It was simply another week. That's when I realized something history often forgets. Civilizations are not built by kings alone, or by famous warriors. They're built by ordinary people, the farmer planting crops before winter, the fisherman facing freezing seas before sunrise, the blacksmith shaping iron from dawn until nightfall, the mother holding her family together during months of darkness and snow. Those people were the true foundation of the Viking world. Standing there, I finally understood the greatest lesson of my journey. The Vikings became legendary not because they fought, but because they dared to sail beyond the edge of the known world, while others were still afraid of the horizon. They embraced uncertainty, they adapted, they explored, they survived, and in doing so, they helped shape the course of history. When I finally climbed back into my time machine, I turned around for one last look. The fjord was silent. The longships rested peacefully beside the shore. The lights inside the machine began to flicker. The freezing wind faded away. The smell of burning pine disappeared. Seconds later, I was home. But I wasn't the same person who had left. Before this journey, I saw the Vikings as legends. Now I saw them as human beings, people driven by fear, hope, curiosity, responsibility, and the desire to build a better future for the next generation. Maybe that's history's greatest lesson. Technology changes, weapons evolve, empires rise and fall, but human nature remains astonishingly familiar, and this was only one stop on my journey through time. There are still lost cities, buried beneath desert sands, forgotten empires, swallowed by history, ancient civilizations that vanished without explanation, and countless mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Next time, I may walk the streets of Pompeii just hours before Mount Vesuvius erupted, or stand beside the workers building the Great Pyramids, or witness the final days of the Roman Empire. One thing is certain: as long as my time machine keeps running, there will always be another story waiting to be told. If you enjoyed traveling through the Viking Age with me, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, because the next journey through time is closer than you think. Until next time.